A true man isn't measured by the size of his strength, but by the strength of his heart. That's from the fucking Disney Hercules movie. The other quote, "Force is all conquering, but its victories are short-lived," is by Abraham Lincoln, and I believe this has a certain level of irony here. As many of you know, Richard Spencer was recently assaulted. In case you're unaware, here's the video.
The leftist protesters, no, I'm not a neo-Nazi.
You like black people?
Well, why do
sure.
so many neo-Nazis love you if you're not a neo-Nazi?
Neo-Nazis don't love me. They kind of hate me, actually.
The KKK, neo-Nazi.
Those people don't like me,
Are you
to be
like
honest.
the hipster version of the neo-Nazi movement?
It's, Pepe's become kind of a symbol.
This video in itself is pretty fucked up, but what's worse is the reaction of the public. Millions of people are crying out that they fully support punching Nazis. Google Richard Spencer. You'll see hundreds of websites, a few dozen news stations, and millions of people defending the violence. I wanted to weigh in on this a little bit. Where the hell do I begin? Let's start with the fact that Richard Spencer isn't a Nazi. The neo-Nazis are very against Richard Spencer's ideologies, as he pointed out himself. He's an alt-right extremist, white nationalist asshole, but he's not a Nazi. This is not an argument about him being a racist asshole. This is an argument about him being a Nazi and getting hit for it. He got assaulted for being a Nazi. This should be scaring anybody with an opinion that isn't universal. All it takes now to be assaulted for being a Nazi is having the tag Nazi applied to you by strangers on the internet. Despite holding anti-Nazism views, having neo-Nazi movements against you, and actual neo-Nazis trying to clear their name from anything to do with you, which I mean says something in itself. National Socialism in its very doctrines is extremely different from white nationalism. He was punched for being something that he wasn't. Listen to his responses and tell me if one of you, and I mean a single person, would have had said anything differently to the questions he was asked. I'll answer this question as I'm the one in the fucking camera. Am I a neo-Nazi? No. Do I like black people? Sure, depends on the individual. Neo-Nazis probably wouldn't like me either, as I hold very different views than them. According to the people who are crying that he should be punched again, that's grounds for assault. Your tag alone. So I suppose to wrap up point one in a pretty little bow, a tag he did not associate with or have much to do with was given to a man, and he was assaulted because other people saw him as the tag he was given. If this could just happen freely to one person that many people didn't like, what stops it from happening to others? What stops a man who is called racist by a stranger from being assaulted by others just for being called a racist without actually being racist? This is an example. I'm not saying Richard Spencer isn't racist. Where do you draw the line? Assaulting someone like this makes you the judge, jury, and executioner of your ideas. That is entitled selfishness at best, believing only your opinions are right, and anyone who doesn't subscribe to your ideologies should be assaulted. Cheering for someone like this is in full support of someone taking their own ideas and acting on them with violence. My second point will start with this. Richard Spencer is a white nationalist, alt-right extremist, and one of my least favorite figures in politics. I am not defending him. His extremist views and the people he's attracted in his movement were so vile, he helped to drive Milo Yiannopoulos, the fucking golden gay boy of alt-right conservatism, out of the alt-right movement. I do not agree with this man's actions or his ideas. I do, however, believe in democracy and the battlegrounds of ideas that a democratic platform presents. Richard Spencer is a failing man. His movement is falling into shambles. The alt-right movement is a shadow of what it was in 2016. A racist, self-fucked, up the ass shadow at that. This man presented his ideology in a non-violent, democratic way. Richard Spencer did not use violence to get into his tiny place of fragile power. He did so by presenting ideas. Those ideas have been so completely obliterated by so many people, and his movement put through the ringer, that it is clear he was never going to be the winner. He is losing, and he is losing through the most divisive and powerful of ways. His ideas are being rejected. In 10 years, this man's career will be a joke. He did not use violence to get to where he was, and violence was not used to help him sabotage his own movement. Violence does not have a place in the battle of ideas. Violence should not be used to prevent someone from exercising their most basic right as a human being, freedom of expression, when that expression isn't causing someone literal harm. No, I'm not including your triggered feelings as harm. I mean legitimate harm. Richard Spencer did nothing but exercise his most basic right, and if he cannot even do this without risk of being physically assaulted instead of intellectually assaulted, then just imagine the risk this poses to you. Imagine the risk posed if it was fully acceptable to strike anyone you didn't agree with instead of dismantling their ideas, or voting for their opponents. Do you know why he's failing? because he cannot get new members into his movement, because the truly racist are very limited in number and are slowly breaking off. He isn't putting new ideas into anyone's head because we have already rejected his core premise. Dismantle his ideas. Fight against him intellectually. Fight against his movement intellectually. But you cannot use violence to stop a man from exercising his most basic human right to freedom of expression when his expression isn't causing anyone else harm, stopping others from thinking their own thoughts, or forcing ideas upon others as gospel and hurting those who don't agree. He has done nothing wrong besides being wrong. All that has happened by striking him is that his movement is more unified, cohesive, and together than they have been in a long time. And that is your fault for empowering Richard Spencer. You have brought out the hypocrisy of others who are willing to preach their own ideas, but fully accepting of hitting someone else for preaching theirs. If you truly believe this man should be punched for being a Nazi, or because his ideas are harmful, or because he shouldn't be allowed to speak, then how can you justify holding even one opinion that the majority don't agree with? Because by your own stance of hypocrisy, you should be struck as well. The people who are agreeing with this are so dogmatic in their opinion, so locked in their own ideology, that they cannot see that violence isn't the answer to freedom of expression. This is anecdotal at best, and I understand that. But the day this blew up, I had an argument with some people via Facebook. I'll show it below. I had another argument that I had failed to save with someone I had been friends with for years, who truly believed that because I said, maybe don't strike others for holding other opinions, that I was a neo-Nazi who supported Richard Spencer. Captain America, Captain fucking America, said that it doesn't matter what the press says, doesn't matter what the politicians or the mobs say, doesn't matter if the whole country decides that something wrong is something right. This nation was founded on one principle above all else, the requirement that we stand up for what we believe in, no matter the odds or the consequences. When the mob and the press and the whole world tell you to move, your job is to plant yourself like a tree beside the river of truth and tell the whole world, no, you move. And that is exactly what I'm doing with this video. When the country, the media, the politicians, and the bulk of the people all say that violence is the answer to punch Nazis, I will plant myself here, where I have always been, where up until a week ago, I thought the people had been with me, and say that I do not believe violence is the answer in a democracy. I believe in the will of the people. Who they vote for, what they stand for, and who they stand for should come before violence. I believe that freedom of expression should come before the violent shutdown of our First Amendment rights. No matter who this was against, I would defend the right to their ideas, no matter my opinions of them. And if you think that makes me a Nazi sympathizer, well then, I defend your right to think that, but kindly fuck off.